Hello everybody, Saturday morning. I'm out in the shop. I'm gonna go ahead real quick, put the rings back on these hitch pins. I've got 5 more hitch pins to turn, and then I'm done with this project, and I'll start working on pin bodies. One of the things, this is where this comes in handy. I mentioned yesterday that this is boring, tedious work, and it's just, there's nothing exciting about it. However, it is incredibly valuable work because when I make a pin body, I don't want to just make a straight tubed pin body. I'm going to want to taper that pin body a little bit. And doing this over and over and over again and working with it is building up that skill for me. So it's going to help me make a better looking body of a pin and potentially cap too. I may want to taper the cap a little bit. I don't know. So pretty excited about that, but I'm going to start today. I got to clean up the mess I made. I left yesterday without cleaning my lathe. I wasn't too worried about it because the lathe is covered in oil. It's full of little shavings of metal, but it's also covered in oil from continuously oiling the piece. So I wasn't worried about rust or anything, but I want to get all the shavings off, clean it up, and then we're going to turn these last 5, and I'll let you know what I get into after they're done. And here are all 12 of my hitch pins. You'll notice they all look quite a bit alike. Remember the first time I showed them yesterday? The prototype and the first one that I made were a little fatter. Well, I decided to go ahead and clean those up. So I put them back on the lathe today, cleaned them up. Everything is pretty much the same. They are super close to one another, and I'm really happy with that. Going to take them in Monday night and get them attached to the equipment. Well, I can honestly say that I'm happy that job is done. the repetitiveness, we talked about it a couple times. I am ready now I got to clean this lathe up. Let me show you how nasty this thing is. Take a look at that. These pins are made from zinc, and they're just everywhere. I mean, take a look at the pile under there. Now, I did get smart. I took a piece of cardboard, and I took a couple of thumbtacks, and I just thumbtacked it. There it is down there. Thumbtacked it to the table, so that way all of the oil and the shavings could fall on that. I can just brush the shavings off with a brush, but when the oil gets really super saturated in there and it's real nasty, I can just unpin it and throw it away and put a new piece under there. Other than that, the lathe has been working great. I've noticed a few little areas where I might want to kind of dial something in or tighten something down. So this was also good for that. Not only was it good for practice tapering, but it was also good for really giving the lathe. I mean, I ran this lathe a lot of hours the last couple of days. But I'm happy that's over. I'm going to spend a little time cleaning up. I need just a little bit of break from the turning. So I'm going to get cleaned up, goof around the shop a little bit. I may do some sketches today. I want to figure out what I want my pin body to look like before I start designing it. I just don't want to start turning because, you won't be happy with it, or I won't be happy with it. So I'm going to draw some rough sketches and kind of get some ideas, maybe some rough measurements, just what I think would fit nice in my hand for a writing instrument. So we'll do some of that, and I'll keep you guys posted on where I go next in the shop today. Day 1 of working on a body, I decided instead of a full-on body, what I wanted was a sleeve that I could grab onto. When you're writing, you want something to hold on to, and then the body will attach back here. This is the mandrel here. The body will attach back here, and this is where the threads will be for the cap. Now, what's weird is I had this sleeve turned. Let me get I'm going to actually shorten the number of threads on the nib to about half that many. That's kind of way too many. But the sleeve looked really good, and I was very careful to center. There's a hole that goes from the back. There's threads back here that is large enough to accept the ink refill. And then, of course, it's 3/8 inch here to accept the threads for the nib. And I put it on my mandrel, and I begin to turn it down, and I noticed something. Watch how eccentric this is. Don't know what happened. I'm concerned that my mandrel may not be straight because I was very careful. I know in the video it looked like this was bouncing around quite a bit. Take a look at that. That was an optical illusion. This is fine. This was perfect through and through. I could put this in, slide the ink refill through, no issue. But I put it on the mandrel and I turned it, and I'm off center as heck. It's all part of the process. This was sleeve number 2. Sleeve number 1, I actually drilled off center. What I did is I drilled 20 millimeters into it so that I could thread it to accept this nib. And then I took my 5/32, I think, bit, which is the size of the ink refill, and I ran that the rest of the way through. Well, that was a mistake. You want to flip it and then run it from the other side to make sure it's centered, because you want to use a starter bit to get a perfectly centered hole. When I did that, this was perfectly centered. So we're going to call it quits on this one, and it's time to make another one. The same stuff I went through with the nib. You just got to keep going and going and going until you get it all figured out. And, you know, it's a learning experience. Once I get the sleeve figured out, I'll do a little video on that. And then the last piece that I'll do is the cap part, which will go on the back of the sleeve. Like I said, it'll have the threads on it. And another reason why, there's two reasons why I chose to do the sleeve. One, when I'm writing with a writing instrument, I don't want my fingers on the threads. It becomes uncomfortable if you do a large amount of writing. So I wanted a nice smooth area to write with, and that's just too small to put your hand on. So, you know, your hand's up here. And the second thing is my tool post only has 2 inches of travel. So I cannot do, say, a 4-inch body of a pen. I wouldn't be able to taper the whole thing. But if I have a nib, a sleeve, and then a smaller body, I think I can pull off the taper and make it look pretty good. Now, the other thing I'm noticing is I'm probably going to have to make some trim rings, some fancy trim rings to go between the pieces. And the reason why is I noticed when this threaded into the sleeve, there was about a 32nd of an inch gap. And I have two choices. One, I can drill deeper and tap deeper, which will fix that. Or two, I can, no, that's the only thing I can do, because it's got to go all the way back in there, which is probably what I'll do. When I shorten this, let's say that's 20 millimeters. I don't know what it is. I'll shorten it to 10, so I'll drill to, say, 15, and I'll tap it that way. I should be able to put it all the way in, but I still think I'm going to put like a dress trim ring there. And the reason why I want to do that is I think that trim ring will stop it from locking in so tightly. It'll also look nice, and it'll give me a chance to try this. It came with my quick change tool post. It's a knurling tool. So I thought maybe I could cut myself a trim ring and put a little bit of a decoration on it. So, you know, lots of ideas here, but I've got to get this sleeve figured out first, and then we'll look at a trim ring between the sleeve and the cap, and then we'll talk about the body section. So it's just one step after another, baby steps, I guess we'll call them. So this is pretty much it for me, guys. I'm getting really tired. Been out in the shop a long time with making those hitch pins earlier and then working on this. So I'm going to call it quits, and we'll come see you again maybe tomorrow. Take care, have a great evening, and thanks for following along.